All right. Better hit record or else this is never going to get done. So we're back. Been a long time. I think February 14th. Yeah. February 14th was kind of the post date for episode 1. And now we are May 23rd. So why the super long break? There's a few things. Number one, had a baby. Kind of about a month after that first episode came. Before that, had a bunch of work travel, and then life hit us head on, and haven't been able to do this. So my new life, trying to get this podcast recorded in as quick a time as possible because baby's out there. I think it's about 5 o'clock right now, and we probably got to feed in about 2 hours, and then gonna start bedtime pretty soon too. So trying to learn these new routines and get the fun work in when I can. Just spent a day of actual work, and now I got to fit in the fun work. So spent a bit of time kind of setting all this up in the office and trying to make it look as good as possible. I think we're kind of there. You're probably going to see this backdrop change a lot because I'm probably going to move camera and everything around quite a bit in here, just as I experiment with things. I don't have all the best equipment in the world to do this right now, but we're making it work. You see the post I did, kind of giving a little bit of a tour of the janky podcast studio set up in here. You'll kind of know what I'm talking about. We're using a Rode VideoMic Pro as our main camera. I got it hooked up to the camera with a bunch of extension cables. I got that mic on a little stand on some gaff tape to kind of get it up to my level to try to get the best audio possible. And then I got a little DJI mic right below that to just be kind of safety audio. And then in the video, you'll see I got 2 C-stands holding up a big moving blanket to cover up the big window that I got in front of my house here in my office, to try to control light a little bit and light this thing properly. Hopefully I'm able to edit the sound, but the light I'm using is actually like a photo strobe, and it's got a super loud fan and it's blaring heat. So I had to turn down the AC in the house and kind of redirect my fan my way so I don't overheat in here because I'm already kind of sweaty. But yeah, we're going to try this out. Feels super weird being in front of the camera and actually looking at the lens myself. Usually I'm on the other side, shooting everyone in front of the camera, but we're going to try this out and struggle through it. 2 things. If you see me looking up over the top of the lens, it's because I got my monitor set up there. Want to make sure I'm recording, want to make sure my audio levels are good. And exposure shouldn't change that much because I controlled that light a little bit. And then if you see me looking down, I got my laptop here with a ton of notes that I want to go through today. So I'm going to use this episode kind of just as basically a big life update. It's going to be a solo episode, no guests, no nothing. That'll be coming soon. Want to talk to a bunch of people in the industry like I had mentioned in episode 1. And really just take the time to learn from everybody and kind of bring everyone who's listening along that journey of me trying to get better, me learning, and just getting better at this craft. So going to go through a bunch of life updates. Also going to go through just work updates as well. I produce a series for Lee Livesey this time of year. That kind of takes up the majority of my time. So I'll go through kind of how that's going, and also just some general travel stuff. Why I hate flying and why I like driving because of because of a bunch of trips, but particularly the first trip of the year for the Elite Series was quite the fun one, trying to fly out there and everything that went along with that. So I'm just going to fire through all these notes, and this could be 20 minutes, this could be 2 hours, but we'll try to keep it short because Lindsay's going to be pissed if I take too long, and aren't helping with the baby. So let's roll through it. So life updates. Yeah, I haven't recorded this podcast, like I said, since February 14th. Apparently, that was the worst time ever that I could have chose to launch this podcast, because I think it was like less than a week after that, the Elite Series started up, and I had to leave for 2 weeks down to Texas and Louisiana for the first Elite Series event of the year. I produce a docu-series for an Elite Series angler, professional angler down in the States named Lee Livesey. He fishes the Bassmaster Elite Series, and we put together just kind of a behind-the-scenes docu-series of his life on tour, who he travels with, Caleb and Logan, and kind of just their journey on the Elite Series and the ups and downs and everything that comes with that life. So yeah, shortly after that first podcast episode, I jetted away and went and shot that. And then I think I was home for like a week or two, and I was gearing up for the Bassmaster Elite, the Bassmaster Classic, which is kind of like which is the Super Bowl of bass fishing. So I'm already stumbling on my words, but we're gonna get through it. Yeah, Bassmaster Classic. It's the Super Bowl of bass fishing. Was gearing up for that. I think I was about a week or 2 out from that, and then all of a sudden Lindsay's water broke. We had a baby due April 17th, and baby was born on March 19th, so that was 5 weeks early. And then it was about a 2-week process before the baby was due, or before the baby came, that a bunch of madness happened. So 2 weeks before the baby actually came, Lindsay's water broke. Her water stayed broke for 2 weeks. A lot of people don't know that is a thing. We didn't know either, but it happened. So that kind of threw a big wrench in life in general, because after her water broke, we had to basically spend those 2 weeks in hospitals. The first week we were living at the hospital full time, and literally, like, we were in a postpartum room, had a bag of clothes between the two of us, and we were just basically waiting for this baby to come, and he just was not coming. Her water was broke. Because the water was broke, she had to stay at the hospital to get tested every day for infection, make sure nothing's wrong with her, make sure nothing's wrong with the baby. But because of all that, we had to stay. So we literally lived in the hospital for the first week. The second week, we kind of got fed up with it. We talked to the nurses, we talked to the doctors. We said, hey, listen, like, we're going crazy in here. We can't do this anymore. Is there any way we can at least go home and kind of travel back and forth to get her testing done every day? And luckily, by that point, she was kind of at a stable-ish enough level where we were able to go home, but we had to go back and forth at least once a day for Lindsay to get her test done to make sure everything was good. So finally, she was induced, because at the tail end of that second week, because she was going downhill, started feeling sick, the whole deal. So at that time, doctors decided to pull the baby out. The baby finally came. Little Stetson Mitchell Renault, happy little baby, 5 weeks early, and he was an ounce off of 7 pounds. So we thought everything was good, but he was still 5 weeks premature. So we had to, they had to keep him in the NICU just for close monitoring. Wanted to make sure he was breathing normally. Wanted to make sure his heart was healthy. The big concern was his lungs, because I guess when they're that premature, lung health is a big concern. So stayed in the NICU. I think it was 2 days after that the doctors started to get a little concerned about his high sustained heart rate that was over 220 beats per minute. So he was beating super fast. Physically, nothing seemed wrong with him. But that elevated heart rate really was concerning to the doctors, because usually that means they're fighting off infection or something's wrong. So luckily, we have the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario within the Ottawa area as well. So the doctors decided to transfer him to CHEO, and that was a bit crazy because we had basically a ambulance show up, two transport team members from CHEO, and then the two ambulance drivers came. Big kind of baby gurney with a bunch of instruments that they had to hook him up to, and begin transferring him to CHEO. So that whole experience was a bit much, but wasn't as much as when we finally got to CHEO. So they had to take him into the ambulance and transport him without me and Lindsay. Me and Lindsay drove in my truck over to CHEO, and as soon as we got there, there were about 20 people around him, and kind of even more just in that NICU in CHEO. So there was a lot of action going on, and most of it was directed towards him. So we were kind of freaking out at that time, not knowing what was going on. And the doctor that ended up talking to us, the way he opened up to us was, okay, yeah, so we see this about every 2 to 3 times a year. And then he started talking even more, but all I heard was 2 to 3 times a year. And to me, that means this isn't normal. Like, something really bad is happening. So I was not on the outside freaking out, but internally definitely freaking out, trying to keep Lindsay and everyone else calm. But anyways, we were told that he had an atrial flutter in his heart. So again, I'm like, okay, what the hell does that mean? Basically, just heart was out of rhythm, causing his elevated heart rate. They said usually on the general just testing that they do, or monitoring that they do, it showed that his heart rate was at about 220 beats per minute, but that's only one section of the heart that it monitors. The other section was likely beating closer to like 350 beats per minute. So they needed to solve this now. And the way to solve it, we were told, was that they needed to perform an electric shock procedure to kind of kick the heart rate back into a normal rhythm. So once they told us that, we said, yeah, go for it. They did the procedure, all went to plan. It was super quick, but it was just something that they had to do. We were also told that it really shouldn't come back. This is kind of like a one and done thing. He said although it's not super common, when it does happen, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of a one and done thing, similar to SVT, where they just do a cauterization in the heart and it solves it. So instead of having to go in and cauterize, they just do the electric shock, solves it. So we were good about that. But after that, we had to spend another week going back and forth from CHEO to home without the baby. He had to stay there to recover. So we basically had 3 weeks of some of the most stressful times in our life. And it was a lot. We're a little better now, but it was a lot for sure. Finally, we got home, but we were definitely physically and just mentally exhausted from those 3 weeks, because we were, even when we were going home, like, we weren't sleeping that much because we're just worried the whole time. So all of a sudden we had a preemie newborn at home that needed a ton of care. All of our normal routines were kind of flipped upside down. It put me about 2.5, 3 weeks behind in editing. And after the baby was born, in about 2 weeks after we finally brought him home, I had another trip to Florida that was coming up, where I'd be gone for 2 weeks for the next series of Elite Series events. So we kind of, all the planning that we had done as just me and Lindsay, kind of leading up to the baby coming, and all the planning I did work-wise going into the new year, kind of went out the window. And then all of a sudden I was 2.5, 3 weeks behind on work and editing. So yeah, kind of threw a wrench in things to start off early in the year there. Finally started chipping away at work, and since we got home, and I really just tried to chip away as much as I can before I had to leave for Florida. But by the time I had to leave for Florida, we had things kind of somewhat under control. We were still drowning a bit, but we were getting there. I mentioned the Bassmaster Classic. In the middle of those kind of 2 weeks leading up to the baby's birth, I was supposed to go down to Tulsa, Oklahoma for the Bassmaster Classic, like I mentioned, to film an episode for Lee Livesey. And kind of during that first week of us actually living at the hospital, I kind of realized that I don't think I'm going to make the Classic. I'm going to have to find someone to replace me to be able to shoot this thing, because I don't think I'm going to be there, and I don't want to let Lee down with just not getting anything. So I quickly picked up the phone, called a couple people, but ended up really chatting with Mac Hoover, great shooter out of Florida. And he said, yep, I'm down, I'm free, locked that in, and spoke with him, gave him the lowdown. He was good. Timing wise, it worked out well for him. And anyways, so once I got that lined up, I was able to talk to Lee, give him the game plan, and he was down. He totally understood what I was going through and liked the new game plan, so that's what we went with. Mac did a great job. He was able to shoot the Classic for us and kind of alleviated some pressure and stress off me when we were going through that whole deal. Yeah, what else I got here? Yeah, anyways, baby's kind of happy and healthy now. Yeah, super lucky to have Lindsay alongside me because she's been probably the best mama out there. It's not easy dealing with a newborn. It's not easy dealing with a premature newborn, and it's not easy dealing with a premature newborn when your husband has to leave 2 weeks after it's born for 2 weeks. So she's held the fort down and held the baby down for quite a while now, and it's been amazing because I wouldn't be able to continue to do what I'm doing without her being able to do that. So it's been amazing. Those 3 weeks of craziness really set me back with work, and it's been tough to kind of climb out of that hole. But finally, which is why I'm sitting here, I'm at a much more comfortable spot now. Feel like I'm starting to get out of that hole. Feel like I'm starting to get back where I wanted to be at this point of the year. I think I got 2.5 weeks before I got to head down to Alabama, but timing wise, it looks like I'm going to catch up on those edits on the episodes that I've already shot this year, and kind of finally climb out of that hole. So because of that, I'm able to sit here, have some fun, record this podcast, and finally get back to a bit more work-life balance, because it's been super out of balance ever since baby got here and I got set back. Yeah, speaking of getting set back, at the beginning of the year, I always kind of do like a yearly sit down. I lock myself in my office or somewhere quiet in the house, and with no distractions, and really just think. I sit down, write out goals, write out kind of what I value with work, what I value with life, how I want to map out my year to make those things happen. And part of that was kind of mapping out a production schedule for the stuff I'm producing for Lee. And with that, there was two kind of big reasons for that planning. I went out and scheduled, put a big schedule together, mapped out when the events are, that was a given, and then mapped out when I want to get the edits done for those episodes from each event. Mapped it out kind of about a week and a half, maximum 2 weeks of editing per episode, so I don't get backlogged, all that. The reason for all that planning, one, was to be efficient with my time and reduce stress, to be able to control what was in my control, and to be able to enjoy as much free time as I could and kind of soak up all the baby time I could. And second was to free up as much time as I could to be able to take on new projects with existing and new clients. So that was a big thing for me. It's one thing that I learned last year was that even if you feel like you have some free time and you could push off some work to next week, it's best to avoid that, because when work is in front of you, you're better off to get it done as soon as possible, because all of a sudden getting it done now frees you up later to be able to take on things that were unexpected, that are new opportunities, where you can make more money, you can make new relationships with new clients. That was a big one. And that was one of the main goals, one of the main things that I wanted to focus on coming into this year, was to just, when I shoot things, when I get work done, I need to wrap up those projects as quick as possible to be able to free up my time for other new and exciting things, podcast episodes, kind of free my time up for things that I want to be doing and not dragging out stuff that I currently have. The last few months have not followed that plan at all. I've had to sacrifice a lot of family and friends time to get out of that hole that I dug, or not that I dug, but that just happened, to be able to feel more comfortable again. So a lot of that work is starting to finally pay off. Finally in a better position right now. It was a lot of, like I said, sacrificing friends and family time, a lot of kind of late evenings working, trying to get stuff done in the late hours, because during the day I would have to help out with the baby on and off. So I think we're finally doing a lot better, and it feels really nice. That being said, along with my wife being amazing, it's also great to work with someone that's as understanding as Lee. He's been great through all this as well. And he's always said from day one to make sure to take the time to do things right. We don't have to rush things just to feel like we need to get something out. He kind of understands a bit of what goes into all this, and understands that it takes time, and it's best if you just do what you need to do to get the best video out there as possible. And he's given me the freedom to be able to do that. But that being said, my competitiveness kind of comes out, and it's kind of tough seeing other guys that are doing this type of stuff like I am on tour get their episodes out kind of like clockwork, like nothing phases them. But I feel like we're producing really good stuff right now, and me and Lee are okay with not being the first ones to release episodes. We're getting there to be able to get back on track with the timing of everything. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Last few months have been crazy, like I said, but I think we're finally in a good position. So some of the Lee or just some of the work updates in general, going into year 2 of filming that docuseries for Lee, and we're still in a mode of kind of feeling things out with that series and kind of seeing what it could be, what we can turn it into. We're really just in a mode of having fun with it, kind of having no pressure. We don't have any sponsors that are dedicated directly to the show right now. And we're kind of just freeballing it right now. I have somewhat of a structure built out that I kind of keep pretty loose for each one, in terms of just the type of content I'm getting. But we're just in a mode of having fun with it and seeing where the future kind of goes with it. So far we're getting pretty good traction too, and people are really loving it. I think, we've almost hit 40,000 subscribers, and we had 41,000 views on the first episode from this season. I think it was back in January, we had about 10,000 subscribers, and within the span of a month, we jumped up to 30,000. So just this year alone, we've grown like crazy. Each event we go to, people go out of their way to stop us, tell us how much they love the videos. I know Lee's sponsors are super happy with it because they're getting some really good content out of it as well. And overall, it's just been really fun. Selfishly, it's been the most fulfilling project I've ever been a part of because of the creative freedom I have with shooting and editing and just kind of the production as a whole. That's super important because in my last kind of job, it was really like pulling teeth to try to get a project off the ground, let alone get it finished. And there were multiple people poking holes in the planning or editing that just really sucked the life out of everything that we did in order to kind of stroke their ego and show others on the team that they contributed in some kind of way. So it's a lot different now being out on my own, and it's nice because Lee has full trust in me to kind of take things the way I want to be able to put together really the best videos possible in whichever way I see fit. So that's been super nice. Creatively, it's the absolute best way to operate when you don't have, at least for me, when you don't have a lot of input from other people for no reason. I'm totally okay with constructive criticism and just ideas in general. But when it is misguided and just information coming at you that doesn't need to, it really hampers your creativity. And when you have a vision for something and then that vision gets completely turned on its head for no reason, it's really tough to deal with. But it's not like that at all now. So it's been really nice. In terms of the episodes that we're producing now, even though I got full creative freedom with it, I'm also not trying to box myself in too much on the structure of the episodes. So I kind of have my essentials that I capture at each event, like the interviews to set up the story, tell me about the lake, tell me where you're at in AOI, stuff like that. But in terms of the flow and feeling of each episode, I really just kind of roll with what I'm feeling that day when I crack open the project to start editing it. Some days I maybe just watched an episode of Anthony Bourdain the night before that sparked an idea, like incorporating some of the live music that you see at an event, like I did for episode 1 this year on Toledo Bend. No, Bourdain, pretty much any episode you see, they pretty well always open up with a kind of live performance that happens on the street or something from some cool place that they're at. And that's just a good example of something that I've picked up from watching episodes like that and focused on trying to incorporate that into an episode. Also, some days I take inspiration from maybe a documentary I watched recently and try to incorporate the way they interview or the way they get in and out of scenes, just try to play around with that. But that being said, each episode kind of has its own story and outcome, which I really try to complement in how the way I edit. I really try to focus on happy moments need to feel happy, sad moments need to feel sad. and I try to lean into those emotions. So try not to get too boxed in terms of having a super structured episode. I really just try to keep things free flowing, and really don't want to make that whole thing super cookie cutter. And I think we're in a good spot right now. In terms of next steps for the series in general, I think the next step is really going to we're really going to try to blow it up. Get as many subscribers as possible, get it as many views as possible, start getting AdSense revenue, the whole deal. And that's going to take a lot of planning just to market it, get eyes on it, and just take the time to put together as much kind of clips to cut short form videos, reels, things like that, to get it out on social media, get people to see little snippets of the show, bring them back to the full episodes, and try to get as many eyes on it as possible. So that's going to be one step. Next step is we're definitely going to try to start reaching out to sponsors to sponsor the series itself. We kind of got some sponsor decks built that we got to go over and start shopping around. And yeah, that's going to be the kind of next steps of that series. And we're really excited where it could go, because we're having a lot of fun with it right now. And we see the trajectory going pretty high for it. So yeah, the next year, the next couple years, hopefully some big things happen. So we'll see. So that's kind of general life updates. That's mainly what I wanted to go over. What are we? 33 minutes in. Okay, not too bad. Yeah. That's pretty much the life updates I wanted to go through. To switch gears, I want to talk about travel and flying. So, bit of a stark contrast, but it kind of ties into the work year so far. One thing people always ask me when I talk about the project that I work on with Lee, with that whole series, they always ask how I travel to each event. I'll get into a bit of a travel day from hell story in a bit, but I drive to every single event, any chance I get, because I hate flying. Anyone who flies a lot probably can relate to this. But I got a laundry list of things that I hate about flying that I'm going to roll through here. And then I'll get into the story. So, where'd it go? There we are. All right. So I don't hate flying because I'm scared of flying like some people. I just hate the entire flying experience. I hate being a slave to the airline schedules. I hate having to pare down what I pack to be able to fit into limited bags and be underweight for my baggage limit. I hate packing all of my camera gear perfectly, only to have TSA rip open my bags, dump everything out onto a table, and give it back to me in a big pile for me to pack everything back into my bag. Hate flights getting delayed. Flights getting canceled as well. We'll get into that in a sec. I also hate doing work in airports. I used to be okay with editing here and there when I get a chance in an airport, but I don't know what it is over the last few years. I don't have ADHD or ADD, but in an airport, I 100% do, because I can't sit down and focus on anything of substance with chaos going on around me. Even if I plug in headphones, the whole deal, I just can't help but people watch and get pissed off at everything going on around me. Hate the terrible food in airports, always garbage. And I always seem to travel on Sundays when Chick-fil-A is closed, which always sucks. I hate having a carry-on sized bag that doesn't fit into the overhead compartment. Usually when I'm flying out of Ottawa, I'm also traveling to random places in the States that aren't big airports. So I always get put on small planes, never have overhead compartment space, and when you're traveling with camera gear, you always end up having one kind of carry-on bag with clothing or whatever that you put up top, and then you got to put your bag, your big heavy camera bag with all your gear in it, under your seat, and you'll never have room. So I hate that. Hate being stuffed into a seat next to people that smell bad. Always happens to me. Hate being uncomfortable in plane seats because I can't man spread. If I can't spread my legs, or just move my body in general, my body freaking seizes up if I can't move around. And sitting in an airplane seat, just, I can't do it. I hate living off pretzels and water on 4+ hour flights. I'm usually pretty bad at bringing snacks onto the plane myself. And even if I do, they're always tucked away in my bag that I got either up in the overhead compartment or stuffed underneath my seat, and it's a pain in the ass to get out. So always end up just having to live off pretzels and water. Another thing that I hate about flying is never being able to go to the bathroom when I want. Yeah. Seems the last few trips too that I've done, I always end up checking into my flight too late, and not actually can't even do that now. Like, being able to pick your seat is like a thing of the past or something now, because you go to pick an aisle seat and it's more expensive than everything else these days, which is absolutely ridiculous. But anyways, I also hate not breathing fresh air for 12+ hours. Something about sitting in airports and airplanes in a whole travel day, I get so stuffed up and like, just, I feel like I can't breathe. Like, it's weird. I don't know what it is. I like being outdoors. Hate multiple connection flights. Flying out of Ottawa in general, I'm always connecting through Toronto or some big airport in the States to get where I'm going. Connecting flights suck. They just suck. Hate the grumpy airline staff for some reason. Maybe it's just everyone that I come across, but everyone's always in a bad mood. The service industry is pretty bad right now, and it's hard to come across people who actually want to help you. It's even worse when trying to change travel plans because flights got delayed or canceled. None of these airlines have good customer service when it comes to trying to rebook flights, anything along those lines. So that's a nightmare. A lot of passengers I've seen have been pretty rude and incompetent, whether they're talking to attendants at the desks or just on the flights. Just hate people when it comes to travel. Hate waiting forever to get your check bag to come out onto the belt. Hate being at the mercy of people to shuttle you around when you get to your destination. That's kind of a big one, especially a lot of the places that I go. Like I said, even if I do end up flying somewhere, where I got to get to after that is an hour and a half plus away from the airport. So you're not going to get an Uber out there. It's going to be super expensive. You got to kind of wait on other people to pick you up and travel you around. So like, like having my own truck for that reason, to be able to just pick up, get where I need to get. If I ever have to rent a car, that's probably the thing I hate the most about airports. Why is it that the staff always act like it's their first time ever renting a car out to somebody? They treat you like an inconvenience for showing up that day and trying to rent a car. It's absolutely ridiculous. But one of the biggest things I also hate is not having all my stuff with me on a trip, especially with camera gear. I like having backups. I got multiple microphones, backup batteries, backup tripods, backup anything, because especially the type of work that I'm doing when I'm on the road, gear gets not destroyed, but it goes through a lot of hard work, and it's always a nice peace of mind thing to have backups. When I drive, I'm way more reliable than an airline to get me to where I need to be going. for some reason, it's been a nightmare these last few years with delayed or canceled flights. So driving to me is way more reliable. When I drive, I'm able to pack anything I want. Like I said, extras for camera gear, clothing, all of that. When I drive, I also have an entire food locker set up next to me with a bag of road snacks that I put kind of in a plastic bag in my center console. So I got all my good snacks ready right beside me. I also put a small cooler on my passenger seat. This is a good life hack if you travel solo. Get you a little just like lunch pail cooler that you see on like a construction site or something. Put it on the passenger seat, fill it with some ice, any drinks, Red Bull, whatever you want. It's good to have right beside you, some cold drinks. Love that when I drive. Able to stop or eat, or able to stop and eat or go to the bathroom whenever you want when you're on the road driving. This is a big one too. When I'm driving, I'm able to load up a big cooler. Got to get my hands on a Yeti because the one, I think it's a Coleman that I have. It's old, absolutely destroyed, hinges ripped off of it. The little latch to keep the water in, that broke off too. So any bags of ice I put in just spill right out. Got to get my hands on a Yeti. I'm able to load that up with drinks and food for the whole trip. Especially when I have to, or just in general, having my own stock of water, Red Bull, snacks, sandwiches, things like that, stored in my truck is huge because a lot of the places I go, we're out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have, maybe the closest thing to be able to get food and drinks is like a gas station, but half the time they're not easy to get to, or I don't have time to get to them if I need to stock up while I'm out on a trip or on a shoot. So to have my own stuff in my truck at the house that we're staying at is super convenient. If I got to head out on the water, it's easy for me the night before I got to head out to just grab a bunch of waters, grab a bunch of food, throw it in the boat for the next day, and be stocked up. If I didn't have that, especially when I fly, I don't have anything with me. So when I'm in those situations where I'm in the middle of nowhere, I'm kind of SOL and I got to rely on what everybody else has, which can't rely on. Able to listen to my own music or podcast as loud as I want. I can do whatever I want in the truck. Able to roll the windows down and actually breathe fresh air the whole day if I want. Can do what I want when I drive. Also a big one for why I drive. I take a lot of detours to see some cool places along the way to kind of really make it feel like travel. That's one thing that I kind of really made a priority last year and that I'm doing this year is the road trips I do kind of average out 8 to, I've done anything from 4 to 32 hour drives. Obviously the 18 plus hour drives I split up into 2 days, but I get to go to some pretty cool places. Last year, for example, I think it was 4 different times that the travel route took me through Nashville. So I'd make sure stop in Nashville for the night if I was breaking up a 2-day trip, stay in Nashville, eat some good food, go to a couple bars, get a cool experience that way. One trip last year, when I was leaving Texas, I was able to swing over to Louisiana State University. After that, I went to New Orleans, headed home, another trip, forget where it was from, might have been from Alabama. On the way home, I stopped in Kentucky, went to the Buffalo Trace Distillery. I think the first trip of the year last year, I went to Washington, D.C. on the way home. A couple trips this year, or one trip this year, I stopped over at University of Florida, University of South Carolina. Always try to stop at big universities because I love D1 college football, college sports in general. So I always try to pick up a coffee mug or something when I am traveling through a big school. And yeah, so if I was flying, I wouldn't be able to go to those kind of cool places and make those detours and really make it feel like I'm actually traveling. Um, Another thing I love about driving, you kind of have a piece of home with you. Being away for 2 weeks from your family, from your home, for me can be tough. But having your own vehicle there, just kind of little peace of mind, little piece of home with you. Um, I'm also able to hop in my own truck whenever I need to go out and pick stuff up. Like I said, if we are somewhere that we have access to good food and drinks around, I'm able to hop out and get that. Sometimes even I've had to pick up some camera gear like SD cards and stuff on trips. So it's easy for me if I have my own truck to be able to go out and get that stuff. When the boys are out on the water, they could have drove their truck and boat to an hour away to some boat ramp that they were trying to dump in to go practice, and I'd be left at the house with nothing if I didn't have my own vehicle. So that's always good to drive, to be able to have that freedom. Once the events are over, this is a huge one. Once the event's over and I've wrapped up shooting, I can just hop in my vehicle and take off, head home, start making my way home. When you're flying, all of a sudden you gotta, and maybe you planned on staying till Sunday or Monday, but the boys don't make the cut or finish on Saturday. If you were flying, all of a sudden you would have to rebook flights, push those up. Maybe travel doesn't work out and you still have to stay a few days extra. It's just an absolute nightmare. So being able to hop in your own truck, start making your way home is huge. That being said, driving, I am putting a lot of miles on my truck. I do hit traffic every once in a while. And there's some long travel days mixed in there. Like the last trip I did, it was to South Carolina, and it was 16 hours straight of driving. Mix in a number of stops along the way. You turn that into 18-hour days real quick. So it's long, but it's comfortable. It's super comforting knowing that there's no chance of flights being delayed or canceled. And then it's also nice having everything and more that I would ever need on a trip with me at all times. So it's well worth it being able to drive. The 2-day drives are definitely tough when I have to split up like a 24 to 38 hour drive to like Florida or Texas or something like that. But it's still comfortable. Those big trips, those are the big ones where I do try to make some detours, whether it's on the way there or on the way home, to kind of split up the travel day, get some cool experiences, and make it feel like you're not just driving straight for that whole amount of time. But even then, like really when you kind of break out what an airline travel day in terms of timing looks like, if for a lot of my travel days, those end up being like 12 to 14 hour travel days. So versus if I drive a single day, driving anywhere from like 8+ hours, I'll take driving any chance I get, because it's just way better. Driving's the shit. Lastly, I wanted to get into what I mentioned before about my travel day from hell. So this just kind of puts an exclamation mark on why I drive and why I don't fly. So first event of the year was in Texas and Louisiana. So we were on Toledo Bend Reservoir for the first one, which borders Texas and Louisiana. And then the second event right after that was Lake Fork in Texas. So it's a long one. I think it would have been a 26 hour drive. I was like, all right, maybe I could fly to this one. We had the Shreveport airport that was within an hour and a bit of where we were staying. So it was going to be a good opportunity to just fly in, have Lee pick me up, and kind of call it a day. It didn't happen that way at all. It was not smooth. Things started off with just a weird flight path in general, with two connecting flights. I was flying out of Ottawa, and it took me to, so imagine North America. So in Canada, Ottawa kind of sits in the southeastern area. So Ottawa's up here. It was going to take me down to Washington, D.C., which is pretty much a straight south trip, probably about a, I don't know, 3-hour flight, something like that. So straight south, and then it wanted to take me all the way back up northwest to Denver, Colorado, and then from Denver down to Shreveport in Louisiana. I made it to Washington, D.C. From D.C., I made it to Denver, and in Denver, that's kind of where all hell broke loose and shit kind of hit the fan. So, in Denver, I was supposed to fly that night. I think it was around, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe even earlier flight from Denver to Shreveport in Louisiana. We boarded the plane in Denver. It was pretty cold, and after like 30 minutes of not moving anywhere, they told us that the shitter at the back of the plane had froze, and that they were working on trying to unfreeze it and get us on our way. So we're like, all right, whatever. 4 hours later of delays because of this damn shitter being frozen, we finally got deplaned. Then we got replaned because we thought the shitter was fixed. Shitter wasn't fixed. Got deplaned again. Got replaned again. Got deplaned again. We were sitting in the kind of around our gate. It was miserable. They had friggin' some door open to the outside that made the whole gate area feel like it was -8 Celsius, which is, what's that in Fahrenheit? -8 Celsius to Fahrenheit. 17 degrees Fahrenheit, so it was freaking cold. During all this time, so I don't know, probably about 4.5 hours had passed since we originally boarded the flight. During all this time, a giant snowstorm rolled in, and finally our flight got canceled. So after about 5 hours of this ordeal, flight got canceled. Lee was sticking around the Sam Rayburn area, which was about 2 hours from his house, waiting because it was closer to Shreveport. He was waiting for me to show up to Shreveport to pick me up. He had to wait around, so I felt bad about that. Once the flights got canceled, it was absolute chaos in the airport because everyone's flights got canceled. There was only one customer service desk, and the friggin' lineup, look, I'm telling you, it looked like you were at Disney World. Like Disney World lineups, hours long. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. So I said, screw it, I'm not waiting in line. I'm gonna grab my bag and just kind of rebook a new flight. Called the airline multiple times. No one was picking up, or it was busy or whatever. Finally got through and was told that all of the flights to Shreveport were sold out. Also at that time, I found out that the FAA forced a ground stop of all flights, meaning I wouldn't get my bag that I had checked with 2 weeks worth of clothing that was on the flight that I was supposed to go from Denver to Shreveport. It was already on that flight. I wouldn't get that bag because of the ground stop for 6 to 8 hours. And at this time, it was 11:30 already by the time I heard this. So I was kind of freaking out, not knowing what to do. Finally called, I think I was looking on Expedia, found a flight to Longview, Texas, which is actually where Lee lives. And it was going to leave the next morning at about 7 o'clock in the morning. So kind of found a new flight plan. All was good. Requested to have my bag transferred from United Airlines to American Airlines, and to bring it to the new destination instead of Shreveport. I needed to go to Longview. Once I made that bag transfer and everything, They said, yep, it's in the system. It's all good. So I was like, cool. At that time, tried to book a hotel. Remember, it's like probably midnight at this time. Tried to book a hotel because I was like, I'm not sleeping in the damn airport till 7 in the morning when the flight leaves. So tried to book a hotel. Of course, everything's sold out because every single person in that airport's trying to book a hotel at that time. After an hour of trying to find a hotel, finally found one. I was like, cool. All right, booked my hotel. Let's go get a taxi. The line for the taxis also looked like you were at Disney World. I was like, okay, whatever. I won't take a taxi. Let me get an Uber. Uber for an 8-minute drive was $100. I was not about to do that. It was the same with Lyft and all those other services. It was absolutely ridiculous. So I said, all right, guess I'm waiting in the Disney line for the taxi. It was probably, I don't know, minus 20 degrees Celsius out for my American friends. Minus 20 Celsius to Fahrenheit is minus 4 Fahrenheit. So pretty freaking cold. Remember, I was supposed to be in Texas. I thought it was going down, easy flight, gonna go in the warmth of Texas. So I didn't pack any big sweaters or anything with me, let alone with what I had with me on my flight and not in my checked baggage. So I just had like a super light Nike like training sweater on. So I'm sitting waiting in this Disney taxi line for a friggin' hour in this super light sweater in minus 20 Celsius weather. That sucked. Finally made it to my room at about 1:30 in the morning. Got about 3.5 hours of sleep. Woke up at 4:30 in the morning. As soon as I woke up, I called United to get an update on my bag. But they couldn't get any confirmation for me whether or not my bag was offloaded from my original flight and was put onto this new one. So I was kind of left in the dark. They couldn't help me at all. Once I got to my gate with American Airlines, I was able to talk to the agent, and she was kind of comforting, actually. She said everything was as it should be in the system. She saw the bag transfer notice, and according to her, everything in the system led her and led me to believe that my bag was going to get to where it needed to be. While I was sitting on my flight, I was just hammering the updates on my on the baggage section of the American Airlines app to see if any scan was made. No scan was updated by the time I got in the air. So still wasn't 100% sure if that bag was on that flight, even though I was told it should be. Finally made it, ended up in Dallas in Texas at the airport there. From Dallas, I was supposed to go to Longview. So when I was waiting for my Longview flight, I asked the desk attendant if she could see if my bag made it onto that flight. And she said, yeah, it looks like it did. Everything in the system shows us that it's supposed to be going where you're going. All looks good. So I was like, all right, like, I believe you, whatever. Finally made it to Longview, super small airport, like regional airport, tiny. So it's one of those ones where you're not walking off the plane into like big section of the airport. You just kind of walk down the stairs. You're on the tarmac, walking to the airport. As soon as I got off the plane, I just said, all right, cool. I'm seeing the bags get offloaded off the plane, see if mine shows up. Every single bag got off that flight. I didn't see mine. Went to the baggage claim area. It didn't make it. No bag showed up. Called the airline. They had no clue where it was. Eventually, they kind of called around and said it would end up in Shreveport the next day. So I was like, all right, cool. Got Lee to pick me up. We headed to Toledo Bend at the house we were staying at there, and was still bagless at that point. On the way to the house in Toledo Bend, we were able to stop at tackle shop called Tackle Addict. It's owned by Brian Robison, former He was a linebacker for the Minnesota Vikings in the NFL. Great guy, great wife as well. They were able to hook me up with some underwear and just some shirts to get me by for the next few days if my bag really didn't show up. Next day arrived, bag still not there. Called the airline again. I think that was the day after that, I called the airline, and they confirmed that yes, it's on its way to Shreveport right now. Finally, all the updates on my phone for my baggage updated, and it looked like my bag was finally headed to Shreveport. So at that time, all the boys were out practicing on the water, but luckily the house we were staying at was on the water. Lee had launched his boat directly from where we were staying, so I had access to his truck. Hopped in his truck, drove the hour and a half to Shreveport, and literally just waited about an hour for that flight to show up. Waited a little bit longer for that bag to actually hop onto the carousel. Saw my bag drop onto that carousel, and finally got that bag in my hands, and drove back to the place we were staying at. So yeah, just we tried our best to get me flying again, and it was just a perfect illustration of the reasons why I hate flying, because you're just so helpless. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, that kind of wraps up my fun travel experience. But yeah, better wrap this thing up. Happy I was able to get through life updates. I think next episode I'm going to try to get on an actual guest on here so we can actually start learning about the creative industry, learn about editors, learn about shooters, actually have a two-way conversation with someone instead of just sitting here for an hour listening to me talk. So next time you see me, who knows, we're probably going to have a completely different setup, because I still got to figure out how to record an interview and figure out all the audio stuff that goes along with that. So yeah, until next time, we're going to wrap this thing up, and yeah, hopefully we'll actually be talking to someone next time. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.